I didn't know a sugar daddy could be a roommate.
He denies he's the father of your 13-month-old daughter, Sine. Nichols was already pregnant when you began your relationship, and you refused to allow her to trap you with another man's baby.
Yes, Your Honor. Doesn't like the fact that I moved on and I have a new relationship and she's all about getting money out of me, making my life miserable.
He started denying my daughter before his new relationship. He actually started denying her when I moved out of his house because he was cheating.
Really?
19 years. We met when we were 15 years old, and when I met him again on Facebook, you know, we automatically moved in together.
Trying to get back in the bed with me like always.
Wow.
So there was no instant connection, like she said, Mr. Young?
And then she hit me up like, hey, I want to come over, man. I ain't seen you in a long time.
Honor, I was living with a roommate that was moving to Georgia.
I didn't know a sugar daddy could be a roommate.
Mr. Young. And
in a courtroom where truth carries more weight than tears, where DNA can rewrite destinies, and where one test can shatter or save a family, Judge Lauren Lake stands as the voice between heartbreak and hope. Because in her court, the truth doesn't just matter, it changes everything. Under the calm authority of Judge Lauren Lake, stories unfold that prove one simple truth. Justice isn't just about law, it's about lives. Each case in her courtroom begins with questions of betrayal, love, and denial, but always ends at the same destination: the unshakable confrontation between evidence and emotion. It's a place where science meets the soul, where a DNA test becomes not just proof of parenthood, but a mirror that exposes character. For many, it's a stage where people regret taking that test, not because the results were wrong, but because they revealed everything they weren't ready to face. In the episode known as He Says Her Sugar Daddy Is the Father, the courtroom becomes a silent witness to a struggle older than time: trust versus truth. The participants are everyday people, but their stories echo through the world of law and justice. The kind of stories that could easily fit into a gripping podcast like the Game Changing Attorney podcast or the Divorce Course podcast, where relationships, evidence, and consequences collide. Judge Lauren Lake presides with a tone both firm and compassionate, understanding that every accusation has a heartbeat behind it, every denial carries pain, and every confession has a cost. The concept of justice in jurisprudence is not just a textbook idea here. It's alive, breathing, and sometimes breaking down under the pressure of truth. Each case challenges the relationship between law and justice, forcing viewers to ask if the law alone can heal a broken home, or if justice truly begins in the human heart. In this courtroom, a DNA test cheating story isn't about science. It's about survival. It's about a mother's fight for recognition, a father's struggle with doubt, and a child's silent stake in the outcome. The triple episode takes us through three powerful journeys. The first revolves around accusations, jealousy, and a shocking question: did love ever exist between two people who now face each other as strangers? The second unfolds with the emotional weight of betrayal, when a young couple's fragile bond collapses under the burden of infidelity. And the third challenges the very boundaries of marriage and morality, as one woman's divided loyalty between two men leads to one of the most complex paternity revelations in court. In the first story, the DNA test is not just a piece of evidence, it's a weapon. A young woman insists that the man she once loved is the father of her child. But her former partner, hardened by suspicion and fueled by pride, claims she was already pregnant before their relationship began. The courtroom becomes the ultimate evidence stage in a divorce case. Even though the couple was never formally married, their battle mirrors what countless couples face when love turns to litigation, when affection becomes an argument, and when emotion meets the cold precision of science. Judge Lauren Lake listens closely, her tone blending empathy with authority. She doesn't just interpret the law, she humanizes it. Every question she asks cuts through layers of lies and self-deception. The Adverse Inference in Evidence Act, the legal principle that silence can imply guilt, hovers unspoken over the courtroom, reminding everyone that avoiding truth doesn't erase it. In her courtroom, every pause, every tear, and every deflection becomes part of the testimony. Throughout these episodes, the truth changes everything. What begins as a simple question of paternity evolves into an exploration of honesty, accountability, and forgiveness. Judge Lauren Lake's ability to connect human emotion with legal insight transforms these hearings into powerful moral lessons that could fit seamlessly into the archives of the Game-Changing Attorney podcast, or celebrate recovery testimonies where law and life meet in raw, unfiltered reality. The second episode dives deeper into the fragile intersection between justice and grace. Here, the story of a young mother unfolds, a woman accused of infidelity, standing beside a man who doubts her, but still loves her enough to stay. It's a reflection of countless modern relationships, where commitment falters and trust fades, and where people search for truth in a laboratory instead of each other's eyes. The emotional weight of the DNA test is heavier than the results themselves, because once the truth is out, there's no turning back. For some, it brings freedom. For others, devastation. The people in this courtroom embody what many experience in private: the heartbreak of suspicion, the sting of accusation, and the silence that follows betrayal. It's a story that could echo in any living room, any marriage, or any courtroom across the country. Judge Lauren Lake stands at the center of these storms with a calm yet commanding grace. Her rulings remind everyone that justice without empathy is hollow, and forgiveness without truth is fragile. She embodies the very relationship between law and justice, proving that the two can coexist, even in the face of chaos. She reminds every parent that child support isn't just about money. It's about responsibility, consistency, and love that goes beyond biology. In these cases, the law is clear, but life is not. There are no perfect victims and no perfect heroes, just people, flawed, fearful, and fighting for a second chance. And that's where Judge Lake's wisdom shines most. She doesn't just deliver verdicts. She delivers perspective. She reminds the courtroom and the audience that truth may hurt, but it also heals. That sometimes the hardest thing to face is not the result, but the reflection. In one episode, when a lie detector test and a DNA result collide, we see not just a revelation, but redemption. The courtroom air changes, not because justice has been served, but because honesty finally has. The mother, long accused of deceit, stands vindicated. The father, broken by disbelief, faces his own regret. The audience feels the full emotional power of that moment, not as spectators, but as witnesses to the cost of truth. For Judge Lauren Lake, it's another day in court. But for the people standing before her, it's a lifetime condensed into one sentence: you are the father. Or sometimes, the opposite: you are not the father. Each declaration carries the power of a Supreme Court ruling, reshaping families, redefining futures, and reminding everyone watching that truth changes everything. When these episodes reach their emotional peak, the courtroom becomes more than a place of judgment. It becomes a place of awakening. The people involved don't just seek justice, they seek peace. Some find it through accountability, others through forgiveness. In rare cases, both. The concept of justice in jurisprudence becomes a living thing here, flexible and compassionate, shaped by real lives and raw emotions. Across these triple episodes, themes of love, betrayal, responsibility, and redemption intertwine with the harsh realities of the legal system. Judge Lauren Lake doesn't just interpret law. She teaches life lessons, lessons echoed in the Divorce Course podcast and legal circles discussing the evolution of family justice. She bridges the gap between evidence and empathy, between science and spirit. And while the courtroom is filled with stories of cheating, deception, and denial, it's also filled with echoes of hope. Moments that remind us why people still believe in justice. From adoption stories, full episodes, to tales of estranged parents seeking reunion, every narrative proves that the human heart can recover, even when DNA says otherwise. The echoes of celebrate recovery testimonies resonate in these walls. Stories of transformation through truth, recovery through honesty, and redemption through courage. Each verdict becomes a moral compass, pointing towards something higher than legality, integrity. Because the greatest relationship between law and justice isn't written in statutes or upheld in Supreme Court chambers. It's found in moments like these, where ordinary people face extraordinary truth, and in doing so, rediscover their humanity. In every episode that unfolds before Judge Lauren Lake, the line between guilt and grace is paper thin. It's a courtroom, yes, but it feels more like a mirror, one that forces people to confront the versions of themselves they've been avoiding. The stories are raw, unfiltered, and profoundly human. Beneath the layers of legal jargon, the concept of justice in jurisprudence becomes something entirely emotional, a truth that cannot be contained by statutes or precedent. The triple episode weaves together 3 lives, 3 families, and 3 tests, all bound by one common thread: the pursuit of truth. Whether it's a father demanding proof, a mother defending her honor, or a child caught between 2 names on a birth certificate, the gravity of the moment is undeniable. And Judge Lauren Lake, with her calm authority, never lets the chaos of human pain drown out the law's clarity. Yet, what makes her courtroom unique isn't just justice, it's compassion. The way she speaks to each party transforms legal discourse into life coaching. She doesn't hide behind the bench, she reaches over it, into the tangled web of emotion, ego, and evidence. She understands that truth without tenderness can destroy, but truth with compassion can rebuild. In the first case, when a young man insists that his former partner's sugar daddy is the real father, the courtroom trembles with accusation and shame. It's not merely about science, it's about betrayal, pride, and the fragile architecture of trust. His denial isn't just defensive, it's existential. For him, accepting the child means accepting that he was vulnerable, that love might have made him a fool. For her, proving paternity means reclaiming dignity, not just as a mother, but as a woman who has been doubted, insulted, and misunderstood. Judge Lake's words slice through the noise. She brings both back to the evidence, not the gossip, not the jealousy, and the evidence. Because in her courtroom, as in the pages of legal philosophy, truth is the foundation of justice. The courtroom becomes an illustration of the relationship between law and justice, not as opposing forces, but as partners, each incomplete without the other. She reminds them that DNA doesn't lie, but people do. And that's why people regret taking DNA tests, not because science betrays them, but because it unmasks the illusions they built around their own choices. The truth, she says, doesn't destroy relationships. It exposes what was already broken. This courtroom moment reflects what so many feel in their own lives. The regret of confronting facts too late. The pain of realizing that truth changes everything. Listeners who follow shows like the Game Changing Attorney podcast or the Divorce Course podcast will recognize the theme immediately. Justice that isn't cold, but deeply human. Truth that hurts, but ultimately heals. And as the test results are revealed, the air thickens. The man who once denied, who once doubted, breaks down. When Judge Lauren Lake confirms that he is the father, the courtroom doesn't just witness justice, it witnesses a man's redemption. The same man who once refused responsibility now faces the enormity of fatherhood with tears streaming down his face. The truth in that moment does not condemn him. It redeems him. It's a quiet lesson in the concept of justice in jurisprudence. Justice isn't punishment, it's balance. It's the restoration of truth where deception once reigned. And sometimes the greatest verdicts are not against people but for them, for their growth, for their awakening. The second case explores an even more fragile space, where love and lies overlap. A young mother, weary from judgment, stands beside a man who claims he loves her but can't silence his doubts. He believes her child might belong to another man, a friend no less. Their story echoes through millions of relationships strained by suspicion, temptation, and betrayal. It's one of those classic DNA test cheating stories that pull the audience into an uncomfortable reflection of real life. How trust is so easily broken, and how truth, though painful, is the only way to rebuild. Judge Lauren Lake, again, doesn't just moderate the facts, she moderates the human spirit. Her courtroom becomes less of a trial and more of a therapy session, disguised in robes and legal procedure. She listens as the mother admits her past mistakes, infidelity, confusion, and guilt. And as the father reveals his emotional exhaustion, he's torn between wanting to believe her and fearing that belief will make him naive. Judge Lake's responses blend judicial precision with pastoral care. She reminds him that justice is not vengeance, and that even adverse inference in evidence, the assumption drawn from silence, must be tempered with mercy. When the DNA test result is read, the shock is palpable. The man is not the father. In a single moment, both parties' emotional architecture collapses. He feels humiliated. She feels hollow. The truth has spoken, but it hasn't set them free. Not yet. This is where Judge Lauren Lake shines brightest. She doesn't let the truth end the story. She uses it to begin healing. Her courtroom is not a final stop. It's a turning point. She reminds them that while DNA may define biology, it doesn't define love. That child support is not a punishment, but a principle, a social commitment to the innocent child at the center of adult mistakes. These moments echo the kind of spiritual awakening shared in Celebrate Recovery testimonies. Because in the same way, addiction recovery relies on confession, so does emotional recovery rely on truth. Every confession in her court, every "I lied," every "I was wrong," every "I'm sorry" becomes a small resurrection of the human spirit. Judge Lake often says that the courtroom is sacred because it's where people are forced to face themselves. She embodies what philosophers call jurisprudential compassion, the merging of moral and legal judgment. Her rulings go beyond verdicts. They speak to the human condition. She teaches that the relationship between law and justice is like that between parent and child. One strict, one forgiving, both necessary. In the final of the triple episodes, the complexity reaches its peak. A married woman who has a child while separated, torn between her estranged husband and another man she now lives with. Both claim to be the father. Both were in the delivery room, and both signed their hearts away to a child whose DNA now holds the key to truth. It's a case so surreal it could have been written for the Supreme Court itself. A living essay on the concept of justice in jurisprudence. It raises impossible questions. Can two men love the same child? Can marriage survive truth? Can forgiveness outlast betrayal? Judge Lauren Lake listens as the woman trembles through her testimony, admitting to having been with both men on the same day. The room goes silent. It's no longer about biology, it's about humanity. Her mistake is undeniable, but so is her remorse. The men, too, are not villains. They're victims of hope, each wanting to believe in something that science will soon either prove or destroy. The judge's wisdom fills the space like oxygen. She explains that while DNA will determine fatherhood, it cannot determine family. That love and loyalty must be chosen, not inherited. Her reflection could easily belong in an academic debate on jurisprudence, or in a heartfelt adoption storyful episode, where love transcends genetics. As the results are revealed, the husband is the father. The moment feels biblical. It's not triumph, it's revelation. The man who doubted now weeps, not out of victory, but out of understanding. The woman who deceived finds herself forgiven by truth, not condemned by it. The episode ends not with applause, but with silence, the kind that comes after storms. When everything broken has settled into clarity, Judge Lauren Lake delivers her final reflection, that truth is painful, but it's also purifying. That the greatest courtroom is not made of walls and wood, but conscience and consequence. These stories of love, betrayal, regret, and redemption go beyond paternity court. They are modern parables of accountability. They remind every listener, every viewer, and every reader that justice is not reserved for courtrooms. It's something we all must face in our own lives. For legal scholars, these cases represent practical applications of evidence law and the adverse inference doctrine in family disputes. For ordinary people, they represent something deeper: how the relationship between law and justice unfolds in real time, in real hearts. It's easy to think of justice as something that happens in the Supreme Court or through attorneys discussing cases on the Game Changing Attorney podcast. But here, in Judge Lauren Lake's courtroom, we see it alive, imperfect, emotional, but true. Her words remind us that law without empathy becomes tyranny, and empathy without law becomes chaos. Somewhere between those two extremes lies what she delivers every day: balance. These triple episodes serve not only as courtroom entertainment, but as celebrate recovery testimonies for broken families. They demonstrate how the truth, though brutal, has the power to rebuild what deception destroyed. They show that even when DNA rewrites family lines, it can't erase love. It only demands honesty. Judge Lauren Lake's courtroom, in many ways, is the people's Supreme Court. Not in authority, but in spirit. It's where humanity is put on trial and truth becomes the only defense that matters. In the closing stretch of these triple episodes, Judge Lauren Lake reminds everyone that justice is never just about who wins or loses. It's about who grows. Her courtroom, though small compared to the towering halls of the Supreme Court, carries the same weight of conscience. Every tear shed, every truth confessed, every moment of silence, it all builds toward one truth: that justice, at its purest form, is not punishment, but purification. Each of these stories leaves behind a trail of lessons, not just for the people standing before the bench, but for everyone watching or listening. These cases become emotional chapters in the ongoing relationship between law and justice. They prove that law may guide us, but justice refines us. And through Judge Lauren Lake's words, that refinement often begins with a single act: telling the truth. In the aftermath of the first case, the father who once denied his child comes face to face with his guilt. He realizes that doubt had been easier than responsibility, that denial was a shield against shame. But as he holds his child for the first time with certainty, his eyes tell a story no ruling could ever capture. It's the story of repentance and of the quiet power of second chances. His regret mirrors the theme found in Celebrate Recovery testimonies, where people speak of how confession became their liberation. For him, the DNA test was never just about paternity. It was about truth, a truth that shattered his pride but saved his soul. This is why people often say truth changes everything. It doesn't just expose, it transforms. And in that transformation lies the deeper concept of justice in jurisprudence. That justice must aim not only to correct wrongs, but to restore what was lost: integrity, dignity, and faith in what's right. The mother in that same case learns something too: that truth, even when it vindicates, demands humility. She sees that love built on secrecy cannot last, and that proving the truth is only half the battle. Living it is the rest. When Judge Lake advises her to protect your child's peace more than your pride, it echoes through the courtroom like scripture. The audience feels it, because in a world where people regret taking DNA tests, not for the science, but for the consequences, that line becomes a timeless reminder. The truth will not protect your ego, but it will protect your legacy. In the second story, where the DNA test cheating story ends in heartbreak, the message deepens. The young couple, once hopeful, now faces a reality neither of them was prepared for. The man is not the father. His tears reveal the cost of misplaced trust. Yet Judge Lauren Lake doesn't let the moment collapse into despair. She tells him something profound: that fatherhood is not defined by biology alone. You can walk away, she says, but if you ever choose to stay, let it be because of love, not shame. This moment captures the spiritual undertone that threads through every case. It's not about legal obligation. It's about moral evolution. It's a reflection of what legal philosophers call restorative justice. The idea that healing must stand beside judgment. Her compassion transcends procedure. She transforms legal confrontation into emotional education. The young mother, humbled by the truth, begins her journey toward accountability. Her mother's words, trembling yet sincere, remind us that family is not a contract, it's a covenant. In that moment, the episode becomes a living reflection of the Divorce Course podcast. The kind of hard conversations couples must have when love falters, but responsibility remains. It's also an unspoken echo of Adoption Story's full episodes, where families rebuild not because of blood, but because of choice. Through every exchange, Judge Lauren Lake demonstrates that the relationship between law and justice isn't static. It moves, breathes, and adapts. It's the understanding that behind every statute lies a story, and behind every verdict lies a life. When the third case reaches its climax, the courtroom becomes almost sacred. 3 people, 1 woman, and 2 men, all standing in the space between love and legality. The evidence stage in divorce cases rarely feels this raw, this real. Both men hold on to their own definitions of fatherhood, yet neither can escape the authority of truth. The moment Judge Lake reads the DNA test result, that the husband is the biological father, feels like a sermon on divine justice. But what follows is even more powerful. The husband doesn't gloat, the other man doesn't rage, and the woman doesn't deny. Instead, silence fills the room. It's the kind of silence that follows revelation, not defeat. Judge Lake looks at them, her voice soft yet steady, and delivers a truth that transcends the case. Forgiveness, she says, isn't forgetting what someone did. It's deciding that the truth no longer has to hurt. Those words hold the essence of her courtroom. It's not a place for vengeance. It's a sanctuary for truth. The beauty of these triple episodes lies in how they expose every dimension of human fallibility while preserving the sanctity of justice, the lies, the tears, the denials. All of it converges into a single realization: that justice is not an external force, it's an internal awakening. The adverse inference in Evidence Act, though rooted in law, becomes a metaphor here, that silence, in matters of the heart, is often its own confession. Judge Lake's courtroom reflects the living intersection between the Game-Changing Attorney podcast's philosophy of accountability and Celebrate Recovery testimony's theme of redemption. It's where the analytical world of attorneys meets the emotional world of ordinary people. She bridges those worlds seamlessly, proving that the law can be both firm